Hello and welcome to another video. In this one I'm going to show you how to make 3 Easter themed treats easily at home in your own kitchen. It's going to be an Easter egg filled with cheesecake, 3 different types of Rocky Road, and a Nutella stuffed pastry. So first of all we're going to start with the Rocky Road. So I'm doing quite a large one. I'm doing a 9 by 14 inch tray. So my recipe is quite a lot larger. If you were to reduce it to 2/3 of the recipe, which I'll put in the description, then you can do it in an 8-inch square tray. So I've put my chocolate in, I've put my golden syrup in, and I've put my butter in. This is all going to go into the microwave for about 2 minutes until it's all melted. I do this in 30-second bursts just to make sure that nothing catches. So into another bowl I'm going to put a bunch of biscuits. I actually ran out of digestives, so I just chucked a couple of shortbread in. It really doesn't matter, it's just biscuits. You could use literally anything that you wanted. And then with my rolling pin I'm going to smash those up into small pieces. Now you don't want these fine, you don't want these to become crumbs like they're the base of a cheesecake, you do want some chunks still in there. And then I've got these little Easter themed marshmallows that I actually regret using. I wish I'd used just some normal mini marshmallows, and I will add some of those later. These end up being a little bit too large, but I thought I'd use them. So this is my tray. As you can see, it's enormous. You feel free to use a much smaller one. I'm just going to spray some grease into this so that when I line it with my baking paper, the baking paper will stick. And so this is how I get the correct size for my baking paper. I just place the tray on top, cut to the corners, and then when I put it in, you fold it all in and it fits perfectly. And then just because I want to hold it a little bit tighter, I'm just going to use some little mini magnets, but this is completely just something that I have on hand and used, so don't worry if you don't have that. So now my chocolate, butter and golden syrup is melted. I'm going to mix this all together until it is combined and smooth. And then into that I'm going to dump my marshmallows and crushed biscuit. So mix all of that up until it's all incorporated, until there's no dry biscuit left. And this is essentially your Rocky Road. You could leave it at this point in a tin, it would be absolutely fine, but I like to make my Rocky Road a little bit extra. So as you can see, I've just added a few more little marshmallows because I figured they'd disperse a little bit more easily than the large ones. So that's all going to go into my tray. I'm going to spend a little bit of time packing it all in as tightly as possible. I want it in all of the corners, I want it as flat as I can get it. Again, if this is where you were leaving it, awesome. Pack it all down, whack it in the fridge at this point, let it harden there for a few hours until it's set. But like I said, this is for my 3 different types of Rocky Road, so I'm actually going to split this roughly into thirds. Then I'm going to split those thirds into quarters, just with my spatula. This will allow me to put my toppings on more easily. So in the first quadrant, I suppose, I'm going to put mini eggs. It's Easter, it's mini egg time, they're going to go on everything. So once I've put on what I judge to be enough mini eggs, I'm going to take some rainbow sprinkles and just douse that third with those, just to add a little bit of extra. So into the middle third, I'm going to put Malteser bunnies. I have white chocolate ones and milk chocolate ones, and I didn't actually have enough to put 2 on each slice, so these kind of get organised so that they cover all of the slices, and then when they get cut up later, it's a shame, but they will still be on there. And then onto that I'm going to put some chocolate sprinkles and some chocolate chips, because I have a bag of chocolate chips and I felt like it was lacking a little bit of extra chocolate on top. Awesome, so that's the Malteser bunny quadrant done, and the last one is going to be cream eggs. Again, it's Easter, it's cream egg season. So these I've cut in half, and don't worry if they're not perfect, they are so bloody difficult to cut in half. I'm just going to put 2 slices on each third and then top them with more sprinkles, and then into the fridge. Okay, so time to make my cheesecake. So this is condensed milk, mascarpone cheese, and full-fat cream cheese, which is going in now. To that I'm going to add icing sugar and cocoa powder because I want chocolate cheesecake. And you don't see it, but I do put lemon juice in. and the lemon juice really helps it come together. You won't taste it in the final cheesecake, it really just helps it bind. So I'd actually recommend putting this in a stand mixer if you have one, with a whisk attachment. Doing it by hand takes ages. So I want a base for these, and these are my biscuits that I'm going to use. Once again, I've got shortbread rather than digestive, that's just because I ran out. This time you do want to crush these to as fine a grain as you can. So into the crushed biscuit, I'm just going to add some butter, and then that's going to go into the microwave for about 20 seconds until it's melted, and I can stir it all together and make a nice cheesecake base. So these are some Easter eggs. These are actually Cadbury's Easter eggs. I found they're the toughest ones to use, so these are actually really difficult to split apart, especially if you get the cheaper ones because the chocolate is so thin. So I've just used a knife and prized the two halves apart, and then these are going to be the bases of my cheesecakes. So into the bottom of each of these I'm going to put some of the biscuit base. Now I actually made a mistake here and put this in when this was still fairly warm, so it began to melt the bottom of the chocolate shells, which actually worked out okay for me because it gave them like a nice level base, but I don't recommend it. I'd let it cool first before you put it in. So with that in, I'm now going to add my cheesecake, and I've put it into a piping bag just to make it easier to fill these up. And once all of these are filled up, I'm going to use a large palette knife to scrape them smooth and even and flat. So once that's all done, I'm going to pop these into the fridge, and then once they've firmed up a little bit, this is just a little bit of ganache that I've made with some melted Easter egg shell and a little bit of boiling hot water, just mixed until the chocolate is melted and runny and the ganache isn't too thin. So I'm going to drizzle that on top and then come back in with some more chocolate sprinkles, cover the tops of those fairly lightly, I don't want them too heavy, and then with some more mini eggs. Told you it was all going to be mini eggs today. I'm going to arrange 3 on each one of each colour, into just like a little pattern on the bottom. And then I've got some flowers that I've made out of candy melt, and you can see how I make these in my Easter bunny video, so go pop that a watch if you want to learn how to make these. And I'm just going to put these flowers on, put a leaf on, and leave them as that. I think it's understated and simple and very Eastery. So that's it, that's the Easter cheesecakes. And with that out of the way, let's put those back into the fridge and move on to the next thing. So I had some cheesecake mixture left over, as you might have noticed, and this is just a little plastic cup that I've got, and I'm going to put some more cheesecake base into the bottom of this. Now this is a much better option for if you don't want to have the faff of trying to get the Easter egg halves apart. Just use a cup, use a glass, whatever you can, and I'm going to pop some more of that ganache in the bottom and then zigzag that up the sides a little bit, it just gives it a bit of a design. And then I'm going to come back in with some crushed mini eggs, pop those in the bottom, and then cover that all up with more of my cheesecake mixture. I leave a little bit back because I want this to be a layered cheesecake. So more ganache, and then on top of that some crushed chocolate Easter egg shell. I split quite a few Easter eggs apart trying to do this, so I'd actually recommend using the cup method if you do this. So more cheesecake on top, cover it with some ganache, and then more decoration on top. I'm just going to use up the rest of my smashed shell, the rest of my smashed mini eggs, just make it look pretty Eastery and delicious. And then once that's done, back into the fridge, let this firm up for a couple of hours, and then dig in. Right, so this is some ready-made puff pastry sheet. I recommend using this. You can get it from most supermarkets. It's way easier than trying to make your own. I'm going to split this into quarters of roughly the same size. I probably should have done this more evenly, but hindsight is 2020. And then with a bunny-shaped cutter, I'm going to cut out the centres, and then with an egg that I've just whisked up in a little ramekin, I'm going to spread that on the edges of my pastry bases, and this will act as a glue to hold the top on once we sandwich it all together. Then into the centre, I'm going to pop some Nutella, and then spread it out with a palette knife, and then come back in with the top of my pastry and pop it on top. Squeeze the edges in, and then come back with a fork and crimp the edges. This will make sure that the pastry stays together and that nothing squeezes out of the sides. If you get a little squeeze out, it's not the end of the world, but this really does help mitigate that. Now I'm going to come back in with my egg wash and, well, give it an egg wash. This will help the pastry brown up in the oven, and as you can see, after baking for about 20-25 minutes, they've come out lovely. I'm going to dust these with some icing sugar, and that's it. That's probably the easiest one to make. And that's that. That is 3 easy Easter themed bakes that you can make at home quite easily. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am a new channel, so a like, a comment, a subscribe would be much appreciated. See you in the next one.